I think we can all agree that there are some amazing projects. Like blockchain as a solution makes a lot of sense, and there are many forms in which it makes a lot of sense. But there's one problem with it that Elastos sort of has identified. And I have a hilarious meme there. I'm very insulted that no one laughed. It's great. Okay, thank you. The pity laugh is fine. But essentially, all blockchain projects currently in existence have one major flaw in common, and that is that they're interacting with a very flawed system. The internet is flawed in a number of ways, including the fact that there are big Goliaths that are running most of the applications, the Facebooks, the Microsofts, the Googles. There's also a lack of security when it comes to things like man-in-the-middle attacks, where there's quite a lot of vulnerability. Even when you are a blockchain solution, at some point you have to interact with a centralized server or a centralized database, and that's where you're kind of at risk for these attacks. And then finally, your digital assets. We all know this problem, the double spend problem of not knowing whether or not you actually can ensure true ownership over your data. And even in situations where you own your data in a blockchain sense, there are applications on your device, like as simple as just using Word or PowerPoint, that are double spending your data in that they're saving your data for themselves, and they themselves are vulnerable to the attacks that I'm talking about. And even if you delete your data and think it doesn't exist anymore, there's another copy that you don't know about that's just sitting there. So our solution, and kind of where we differentiate ourselves from other decentralized application and decentralized internet solutions, is to create a completely secure virtual environment that runs more like an operating system, that is an operating system, a network operating system. So the idea is to use blockchain to solve the double spending issue, but to keep applications off the internet by using a self-contained virtual machine and a carrier network of peer-to-peer distributed nodes to communicate. So the other thing that, okay, so I kind of didn't differentiate, so let me go back a sec. So there are lots of really great decentralized internet solutions out there. One of them is Blockstack, another one is EOS. Where we differentiate ourselves is really in the fact that we are protocol agnostic, so any protocol is absolutely valid, and developers have a lot of freedom to be developing using whatever consensus mechanism they'd like, and kind of taking from any sort of project inspiration that they'd like. Also, any programming language is fine. And these are huge barriers to entry for a lot of developers, so this gives developers the freedom to work within this environment in the way in which they feel comfortable. Cyber Republic is kind of affiliated to us, and what we mean by that is if we're going to have a new internet, people have to build it. Not only do we integrate with other solutions that already are in existence, but we have a community of collaborators, not just developers, but designers, product developers and managers, entrepreneurs, who are all working together to figure out what this new internet needs to look like, how it needs to work in terms of the projects that can be built. It's an easy place to find and connect with other collaborators and build projects together. And there's also a governance piece that's really important. And the governance of the new internet is going to be one of the biggest questions that we have moving forward. So that's another thing that we're working on in the Cyber Republic. And I would really encourage and invite all of you to check it out and get involved and see if there's anything that you would like to do to contribute with your knowledge into the Cyber Republic. And that is my part. So that's kind of from the perspective of like, here we are in 5 minutes, you're welcome. But I'll hand over to Yuki, who's going to talk a little bit more about the infrastructure.
Okay, so yeah, as Kai said, my name is Yuki. I'm part of the Cyber Republic. I run Elastos Brisbane meetups on a monthly basis. So if any of you guys are in Brisbane and you're interested, please come along. I'm here to essentially describe the value of Elastos to developers and why it's an exciting time to join the Cyber Republic. I like to kind of start off by saying blockchain is only one component of Elastos. So there are various key components, but essentially blockchain is a vital component, but only one. Now, I also like to mention that we're not really competing directly with other platforms like Ethereum, EOS, Neo. We kind of provide a solution or an environment where we can all work together to tackle the trilemma the blockchain trilemma that hasn't exactly been resolved or solved at this stage. So yeah, look, before I get into it, I kind of want to keep this simple to talk about Elastos. There are many components, so I like to just talk about the overarching, I guess, goal of Elastos, which is to create a decentralized smart web for the future, essentially a reliable and secure network. And in order to kind of emphasize, I guess, the importance of why we need a new internet infrastructure, I like to kind of go back in history and talk about how the internet came about. So in the 1960s, essentially, the internet was originated by a bunch of people who wanted to create resilient communication systems that will survive nuclear attacks in the US. From then on, according to one of the originators of the internet, a key component of achieving this goal was decentralization. So fast forward to 1989, we have Tim Berners-Lee. He came up with the concept of the World Wide Web. And then fast forward a bit, 1994, we have Mark Andreessen, who came up with the first, essentially, mainstream web browser that became Netscape. So if we jump further forward in time to today, we can recognize that the internet has really revolutionized the way society functions, the way the global economy also functions. But interestingly, the layers on top of that infrastructure, or the current infrastructure layer, has become more centralized over time. And this can pose a risk to the whole concept of being a survivable system. So this has also created a lot of flaws with the internet, and I'm sure we're all familiar with antivirus softwares, etc. Maybe some of you are familiar with the term that the most secure device is one that isn't connected to anything. But that's not really practical in this day and age, especially if we're talking about IoT, getting smart devices linked, more and more smart devices linked to each other. So that's where Elastos can help. Basically, Elastos is made out of four main components, or four pillars. We start off with the Elastos blockchain. So at the bottom layer, we have the Bitcoin main chain. On top of it, we have the Elastos main chain. And on top of that, we have the Elastos side chains. So it is merge mined with Bitcoin, which is a very unique way of approaching scalability and security, decentralization. Essentially taps into Bitcoin security. So Bitcoin miners can essentially upgrade their software to start mining ELA or ELA, which is the native token within Elastos. Okay. Now, another cool thing is that with the blockchain structure, Elastos has side chains that essentially do a lot of the work. So with Ethereum, EOS, pretty much everything is done on the blockchain, on a single layer. I know that they're working on other solutions, side chains or additional layers for scalability, but Elastos takes all that into consideration on a fundamental level. So the Elastos main chain, essentially, all it does is circulate ELA, which is, again, the native token. So just moving along, that's the first pillar. I'll just touch on maybe, okay. The Elastos runtime, top right, just up in the box. The Elastos runtime is essentially a lightweight operating system. You can run on any device, current device, so Android phones, iOS phones, PCs, Macs and Windows. Essentially, it provides a secure environment and doesn't allow applications and devices to touch the internet. It communicates directly with the kernel, and it's also it's compatible with various different languages, which is also another advantage. And just under the section of runtime, there's also another main pillar, which is the SDK, just number 3 on the right. That's the software development kit. That essentially allows applications to enter the Elastos ecosystem and gain IDs. Okay. So the Elastos carrier, the top left, so this is the fourth pillar, the last one I'll touch on. Essentially a decentralized peer-to-peer network. Data can be sent through a decentralized network while being very secure through encryption. Essentially, there was a example where in the future, using the Elastos network, for example, say if I lost my phone and I just need to, if I approach a friend who's connected to the Elastos network, I can essentially put in my ID or maybe my fingerprint, and all my data will be sent to his phone. And once I'm done with it, the virtual machine essentially, or the sandbox environment disappears and all the data is erased. Essentially now is a really significant time to join the Cyber Republic because we are creating this new infrastructure for this smart web. And we need as many developers as possible. It is a multifaceted project. There are many aspects to it. So, essentially with the advent of blockchain technology, which was given to us by Satoshi or through the Bitcoin network, we want to kind of take that ethos back to the ethos of the decentralized internet. And we want to create essentially a system where we can approach the blockchain trilemma, and we want to revolutionize the computational and transactional infrastructure. And this will bring potentially a new wave or to reshape various aspects of society and the economy. So yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell.
Cool. And just because we know, sorry, I might have lied about keeping it short, but just because we know that a lot of you are investors or you're interested in the crypto aspect, got here a crypto enthusiast who will tell you what he sees in our token, ELA or ELA.
Yeah, we'll see where we go. Hi, my name's Aaron. I'm admin for Elastos on Telegram, Reddit, Facebook groups. So have been for about 4 months. So I pretty much fell into Elastos about December, just because I was an avid follower of Neo. And I basically spent most of 2017 flipping ICOs until I met Elastos, and from there I just stuck with Elastos and starting to earn Ella through the admin work. But what I love about Elastos is, as you said, is the security through the merge mining with Bitcoin. So we're currently merge mining with BTC.com. They'll be distributing all the Ella out to all the miners shortly. Then from there, we'll be looking to add on Ample as well, so it's just more extra hash power to our network to secure it. With our roadmap as well, over the whole of 2018 has been pretty, the whole crypto market has been pretty, roller coaster ride, but with our team, they've been rock solid. They've been hitting every roadmap. So as of next month, of December, we've got Ethereum, Neo sidechains that will be released as well. So I just had a mind blank, and then from there, we're going on to Cyber Republic as well, as Yuki said, for the developers. But it's not always about developers as well. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. Could be finance, because we're looking for accountants as well. People want transparency across blockchains as well. So there's a task that we added shortly to audit Elastos books to make sure that we're transparent. Whatever we're spending our money on, people will be able to view that. So with Cyber Republic as well, there was about 16 million LR that was transferred from the foundation over to the Cyber Republic, and then from August of next year, there'll be a council elected, and anyone that will want to participate can vote on how the fund's going to be used. So there's going to be our way to decentralise it. It's not going to be done through the foundation or any other third parties as well. So it's a good way for people to join, graphic designers. If you're in videos, you can do videos for Elastos. A new task has just been popped up where we're going to do like an explainer series over 5 videos. So it's just a good way for people to get involved, earn some Ella on the side from their normal day jobs. That's what we're trying to push. So one of our sayings is we build it together. So hopefully we can all build the internet as one.
He's already got a question. So the last note, just to wrap everything up, basically what we want you to take away from this is that an internet of wealth in which there are fewer barriers to entry for everyone, in which we can all work without middlemen. The disintermediation piece is one that gets lost a lot, where we can all sell our services without needing to go through that intermediary, but also where we get a say in what our data looks like, how it's used, and what applications we want, really. Like, it's the ultimate control. And I love the idea of collaboration being the next competition. I think that was one of the wisest things I heard today, so thank you for that. Go ahead and ask your question. I'm terrified.
One of the sidechains that was developed just quite recently, a couple months back, I believe, is the ID sidechain. So each asset, each device, each individual has its own unique ID. That helps with creating a trustworthy environment. So, for example, I don't know, if your child is surfing the web, comes across a dubious website or something, essentially, in the future, you could perhaps put in rules in place where these website needs to be authenticated or, I guess, approved by the users or the supervisor. So that could essentially block it, but yeah, it's still essentially in its alpha stage.
So with Elastos, it's not using the normal internet TCP/IP protocols, so that's disabled in the Elastos environment. So with children accessing like a YouTube version on Elastos, that app, depending on whoever developed it, they could have like a KYC. And then from there, if you catch your child looking at something they're not allowed to, you can report it. That will probably go back to the owner of the app that created that medium. Report function, they can take that off there.
Yeah, but beyond that, like the screening mechanisms or the parental controls, let's say, would probably operate in a very similar way. In that, like, yeah, our current internet has tons of content that children shouldn't see, and that's kind of how people are. So they may want to take that into this new environment, which is not the World Wide Web. But there will be the similar mechanisms of control in place. And again, we're at alpha stage, but I think that they will look very similar. And there's, again, that governance piece where part of that will be decided by the community, and what that looks like needs to be decided by all of us. So hop on and put your 2 cents in. But I mean, that in itself sounds amazing, but also, what are the implications? Is it also a dangerous idea? If we think about the echo chambers in which people live already, like there's so many questions, but these are the things that need to be answered by not one person or one Goliath like Microsoft. But it's not real. That's the difference, is that it could be real. We could have it. Do we want it? We don't know. But we don't know what it's like to really have hyper-personalization, because we're always being told what we want.
Absolutely.
So I agree with you. That's fascinating. And there's such a huge, interesting exploration to be had there.